Senator John McCain has urged the Trump administration on not firing the U.S. commander in Afghanistan, General John Nicholson, saying that the real reason for the U.S.'s failure in Afghanistan is due to a lack of strategy. McCain, who chairs the Senate Armed Services Committee, said in a statement, and I quote, "The reason for this failure is a lack of successful policy and strategic guidance from Washington over many years, which has continued in the first several months of this new administration. Our commanders-in-chief, not our commanders in the field, are responsible for this failure." End quote. The statement came a day after the Taliban once again attacked NATO troops near the Bagram air base and amid reports that President Trump was seeking a change in leadership in Afghanistan. I'm joined on the broadcast by Glenn Carl, former CIA officer and also an author. He's joining in from Duxbury in Massachusetts. I believe it's good morning to you, Glenn. If I could just ask you, what is the most damning part of Senator McCain's comments, let's say, on Afghanistan when it comes to the Trump administration? What do you think is the most pointed critique over here?
Well, it always goes to Donald Trump himself. The indictment really, McCain was broad in his indictment of our policies, arguing that we haven't had a policy that has been aggressive enough. That's a standard McCain position. He's held that for many years, but here he's leveled it again, and accurately, at Donald Trump, because Trump has deferred to the generals, then is discovering that the world is complicated, that it's hard to define victory, and it's harder still to achieve it, whatever that might be in Afghanistan, that there are no happy options. And so then he just wants to kill the messenger, which is the standard thing that a fool does. So that's largely McCain's criticism of Trump. Now, from McCain's perspective, he wants to see a much more aggressive military approach by the United States. This is a standard McCain position. He likes to be aggressive militarily. Trump might also, but Trump's advisors are explaining that, in fact, that is not really a likely way to achieve any kind of success in Afghanistan.
Right, but also, Glenn, I mean, for a viewer, let's say, sitting in India, trying to understand the mechanisms of the U.S. democracy, isn't this also a big question mark for the President Donald Trump? This is the second time that John McCain, in as many as 2 or 3 weeks, has come forward and really critiqued the president, somebody from his own party. It was the skinny repeal of the Obamacare a couple of weeks ago, and now it is the president's policy. Does this in many ways indicate that all is not well within the GOP?
Well, yes, that's certainly true. Trump spends his time criticizing, not just criticizing, denouncing in outrageous and disgusting ways anyone who doesn't simply agree with him. But even if one agrees with him, his statements are largely incoherent on many positions. With respect to Afghanistan, that's once again playing out. The generals whom he has put in place have explained to him the complications of putting more soldiers in or taking our soldiers out, what the conflicting ethnic groups are, the role of Pakistan. All of these complexities make any step a difficult one. And so McCain's criticisms are new. Now, what's the slight change is that Republicans have, for 6 months, hidden behind silence with anything that Trump, with regard to anything that Trump has said. And now you're starting to see some criticisms come, such as McCain's on Trump's theoretical Afghan policy, which is the lack of a policy. Trump's policy consists of convening the generals. Generals have said, it's complicated, we recommend a relatively small 4,000-man increase in our soldiers. And Trump's response then is, we're losing, I think I should fire the commanding general. That's it, which is a standard Trumpian kind of position, which is at best counterproductive and largely meaningless.
All right, but, there's been another development of late, and it's a former general who's now the chief of staff. And do you think that perhaps might indicate some change in the way the president is looking at Afghanistan? General John Kelly's already created a bit of a shake-up since taking charge. Can we expect anything to change?
Yes, I think that we can. Kelly has stated publicly that he never saw a less coherent or a more dysfunctional and incompetent organization than the White House that he came into. The first 6 months have just been chaos and incompetence. Kelly is not chaotic and is not incompetent. Now, one can disagree with the positions he will take. He's very conservative, but they are coherent and he is effective. So, yes, you will now start to have more coherent advice and information get to the president, and probably to some extent a more rigorous, controlled message or policy coming from the White House. Kelly realizes he cannot control the president, but he can control a good part of the White House. So I think you'll see probably a more coherent White House going forward, yes.
And of course, many, many more comparisons with House of Cards, I'm sure. But that's a separate issue. If I can ask you, Glenn, also, just speaking about the stalemate of sorts that exists when it comes to the US's policy on Afghanistan, there's not much clarity on what exactly that strategy is, as John McCain pointed out as well. So to give the president perhaps a little bit of leeway, do you think that maybe a change in leadership might just be what the doctor ordered, and that might set things in motion for the right, or at least set them in the right way for the United States, where we keep hearing of troop losses on a regular basis? Maybe this might just be what is needed at this point.
Yeah, well, 2 points. Your comment on the complexities of American policy, or lack of coherence of American policy in Afghanistan, is on point. And that's been a heartbreaking reality for years. When I was working on Afghanistan, it was no different. I had officers returning to the United States from their tours in Afghanistan coming to brief me or me to brief them. And they would ask me, as a senior officer, what American policy was. And the answer was we didn't really have one, but to sustain the status quo on the whole and hope that it would get better. That's not changed, and that is a dramatic problem. However, there's no easy way forward. So to get to your second point, changing the commander will not change the realities. If you don't like that 2 and 2 is 4, and you get rid of the math teacher, 2 and 2 remains 4. This is the problem. What is Afghanistan? It's a series of, frankly, of ethnic tribes, with the Pashtun largely dominant, but not totally so, who have always competed with some level of recognition that Afghanistan exists separate from Pakistan or Iran, but in vague, decentralized, very tribal ways. And then Pakistan is always a problem. Pakistan continually mucks up any move towards stability and a strong government in Kabul. And Iran has its own interests, and Russia and China now too. And then, of course, India is a player. And none of them have identical objectives. So Afghanistan is always going to be the victim of this. And U.S. soldiers, impressive as they may be, cannot solve the problem of Uzbeks and Pashtun not getting along, or Pakistan's intelligence service messing around, unless the United States is willing to destroy Pakistan, and that's not going to happen.
All right.
So changing the leadership won't change that.
Okay, just one quick question at the end, Glenn. For the uninitiated, who exactly advises the President of the United States on tricky, long, drawn-out situations such as Afghanistan? Who is got Mr. Trump's ear at this point, if anyone?
If anyone, well, maybe that's the answer, if anyone. But the National Security Council, a small staff in the White House of several dozen relatively senior, highly experienced officers from around the government, formulate national security policy recommendations, and then the policy. And of course, the president decides. Now, the National Security Council is fed by the Defense Department, the CIA, the State Department, and so on. And there will be meetings that come up with policy recommendations that go through the National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, to the President. And then the President says, go left, go right, invade, don't invade, make nice, or get angry. And that's how it's supposed to go. But the problem with Afghanistan is that there are no answers, like North Korea, that are satisfactory. So most likely, I think, is what the generals and the State Department on the whole have recommended, which is a small increase in soldiers. Well, it's not small, it's 4,000 more soldiers. So as to, one, stabilize, and two, improve the control that Kabul exercises over the territory of Afghanistan. But that's open-ended and unsatisfactory to Americans also.
All right, and perhaps another small part of the problem might be that the man listening doesn't exactly have a lot of experience in foreign policy. We'll leave it at that. Glenn Carl, thanks very much for joining us on the broadcast. Appreciate you taking out the time.